Hello, welcome back to Rob, Ryan, Red. Thank you to everyone who's already listened to our regular upload this week. But we thought as a special treat, we'd get a special guest in to preview our upcoming clash with Cambridge United. And as we get onto very quickly in the podcast, when you think of Cambridge United, one man springs to mind, Max Rushden, former host of Soccer AM. You might know him from Guardian Football Weekly as well as a variety of other football-related media things that he's done over the years. This is, Nave, how would you describe it? It's kind of a loose chat about Cambridge United and Wrexham.
It previews Cambridge and Wrexham without at all previewing Cambridge and Wrexham. Very entertaining, very, very funny guy. And for the next, whatever this is, 20-odd minutes or so, you will be, I can assure you, thoroughly entertained. It's bizarre, the threads that are pulled, but nonetheless one of the funniest ones we've done in a while.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
So, Max, thanks very much for joining us on Rob, Ryan, Red. You, whether you like it or not, you were the first Cambridge fan who came to mind anyway for us. Who are the other famous Cambridge fans? Because growing up for us, we now have this era where Will Ferrell, Danny DeVito, Rob and Ryan support Wrexham. Growing up, it was Tim Vincent. He was the one. He was the one Wrexham oracle. Who were the Cambridge
doesn't that feel better? Doesn't that feel better? Just Tim Vincent. There were better days. I mean, okay, you've got a bit of money now, but really, it's the Tim Vincent days. When I think of Wrexham, all I think of is Tim Vincent. I think there was one episode of Blue Peter where he'd done, I think, that kind of assault course. I did it for Soccer M, where they sort of they throw you through like a freezing cold tunnel of water. And then he couldn't speak when he got out. It's actually one of the greatest bits of television that's ever. I mean, search it out. I mean, obviously to our American audience, not a lot of this makes sense, but that's fine. I don't care. We've got one half of Groove Armada.
Armada.
Yeah, well, actually, Tom, he's called. Quite a good footballer, okay. Tom Findlay, as it turns out. Good left foot, good engine. So half of Groove Armada. Mark Saggers, sort of former TalkSport broadcaster, and it is slim pickings, to be fair, of inverted commas celebrity Cambridge United fans, which is so I think when I was growing up, like, there wasn't anybody, and I remember, and it's so different now, obviously with club podcasts, etc., but like when there was any mention of Cambridge United, like if there was like a paragraph in Shoot magazine, I would lose my mind. Like, okay, there was the local news, but if there was anything on like Football Focus or something, you'd be like, shit. Like, I remember 442 had a whole page on Carlo Corazin as, one to watch. And I was like, this is absolutely the greatest. I'd read it over and over again. So I sort of feel like, you feel like when you're on TalkSport or the pod on Football Weekly or whatever, you're like, okay, you're sort of carrying the flag. But, I am now a massively plastic Cambridge fan because I'm quite a long way away. And actually, I stopped going like week in, week out, sort of in the early 2000s. I moved to London. I started playing for a team in London on a Saturday afternoon. And so my support then was very much sitting in the bar after the game with Soccer Saturday on and just being sad when we conceded a last minute, equaliser against Gillingham or something. So, so if you're expecting searing insight on every minute of every game this season, you should have asked one of the guys from Under the Abbey Stand pod. But I do watch all the midweek games because they're now like a 7 a.m. kickoff, either 5 a.m. or 7 a.m. kickoff. So I'll watch those. The Saturday afternoon games, it's 2 a.m. I have a small child. I'm off air at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night for TalkSport, and I'm on air on a Sunday night, 10 p.m. till half midnight. I am not getting up in the night in between those two at 2 a.m. to watch us, lose 3-0 to Wrexham on Saturday.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that now.
You're speechless, Rich. You don't know what to say.
What's wrong with that answer? Is it not good enough? Am I not a real fan? Am I not a real fan
because we had the same problem, didn't we, Nathan, when we went to Vancouver in the summer on the pre-season tour.
God.
And I was gonna stay up to buy Bolton away tickets. It was just too late. There was just no point, was there?
But
In the end,
Max,
it was just...
he'd made the commitment that he was going to stay up for Bolton tickets. Now, Rich likes to go to bed at a normal hour.
I'm a 10 p.m.
I'm a lot
man.
more nocturnal. And he made it within 30 minutes of them going on sale, and then he crashed out, and he didn't get
Do you know
one.
what?
So
Yeah, I'm with
he was
you,
gutted.
Rich. I don't understand anybody who stays up after 10 p.m. unless they're doing something.
Yeah, you've got to have a reason, haven't you?
It's total madness. Like the day is, there's just no need. I work quite a lot of evenings now, but if not, and I also have a small child, so but I've been tired since about 1996, and so the thought of when people go, yeah, no, I stay up till about 1. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're completely. If that's you, Nathan, it's mad. It's madness. It's silly. You're young, but really, yeah. I'm listening.
My defense, I have to edit the podcast, do all the extras. Rich just records, logs off. Sorry to put people behind the curtain here.
To use a BBC
term,
I'm the talent, aren't I? So
right, are you just a show and go? You're just show and go, Rich.
He's a show and go, and then he says to me, maybe we should do an extra episode. Maybe we should do another. And I'm like, yeah.
Maybe we should get Max Rushden on at 6 a.m.
Yeah, we should get Max Rushden at 6:30.
You could edit that, Dave, couldn't you, on your day off?
Max, I was going to say, to get us back on track, me and Rich always talk about, favourite Wrexham memory. I always bring up the FA Cup. I love the FA Cup. Some of my favourite ever games have been in the FA Cup. What was your
Please don't ask me my favourite Wrexham memory, because I'm trying to think, do I have?
Yeah,
if I have any?
Well, do you have any?
I don't know. Obviously, I know Mickey Thomas scored that free kick.
Yes.
Right? I know that, but I'm trying to think sort of pre, you stealing Paul Munnin. I was
going to say for your favourite Cambridge moment, but maybe
I
digress
thought
for your
you might.
favourite Wrexham one.
I'm trying to think if I can think of, because I've probably watched us play you, I don't know, 8 times. I don't know. I'm trying to think in the 90s if we were in the same division. We were doing quite well. I don't know where you were. We probably, went back and forth a bit. But I would safely say I have no instant memory of anything that Wrexham Football Club has ever done, I would say, apart from Mickey Thomas's free kick. I do apologise too. I appreciate that may not endear myself to the audience, but you have to be honest in broadcasting,
You do.
Yeah. I mean, Nave, I'd ask you what's your favourite Cambridge United moment. I mean, it's kind of the same question.
When they didn't get Paul Mullen to stay after renaming the stand.
I mean, this isn't the friendly podcast we wanted it to transpire.
No, but that is funny. Gotta say, that's funny, right? That is really funny. We did only name it. Yeah, we only named it for a season, so it wasn't going to be his stand forever. But yeah, losing him to a team that were 2 divisions below you after naming a stand after him is objectively very Cambridge United. We were asked to write for The Guardian about our favourite game. And obviously there were loads of amazing highs, right? I was 10 when we started this journey, which you are too young to remember, from going from Division 4, Division 3, Division 2, playing really dirty long ball, getting to the quarterfinal of the FA Cup 2 years running, in the playoffs to get in the Premier League. But the game that really sums up, to me, being a lower league fan and being a Cambridge fan, we played Cardiff at home. It might have been the Championship, might have been League One, not sure. Probably League One. And I think David Ellery was reffing, so he was clearly the most famous person on the pitch. And he sent off one of their players after about 40 minutes, right? So we're up against 10 men for the whole second half. About 70 minutes in, he sends off another one of their players. So now we're playing 9 men. Then in about the 80th minute, he sends off one of their players for a deliberate handball on the line. So they now have 8 players and we have a penalty. And the game finishes 0-0, right? And it's just hilarious, because actually seeing 8 footballers on a pitch is so funny, because it looks like they've got 3 people. It's ridiculous. And there's this BBC, I think the local BBC station in Cardiff. It's on YouTube, and it's really, the audio quality is so shit, but it's so funny just hearing this Welsh man go completely insane because they've managed to hold off with 8 men. And we were just there going, I mean, actually, it's quite funny. It's funny now. It's a bit like the start of the season when we had 1 point after 9 games or 10 games. I was like, there is part of me that would like us to finish with just 1 point.
Yeah, because if you do it in style.
Yeah, exactly. Carry on.
I said we had that a few years ago when we played Dover Athletic at home, who were already relegated on minus points, hadn't won away from home all season. I think they'd scored 4 away goals all season, and they were 5-2 up at the racecourse. But we annoyingly won 6-5. And it was like, we might as well lose. Do you know what I mean? It was funny watching every goal go in at this already relegated team trying to get to 0 points.
The funniest part of that is 5-2 down to a team that hadn't won away all season, had barely scored a goal, to then people had left at 5-2 in complete disgrace. and then it's 5-3, 5-4, 5-5.
And
Can
now-
you get back into the stadium?
Now
And
it's
then
like in
last
Wrexham
second, 6-5.
folklore, it's like a great gig, or it's a famous comeback. It's like everyone says they were in the ground for it, and I was there, but who was actually still standing? But by the time that sixth one went in,
Yeah, I have no sympathy for anyone who leaves. People, Liverpool fans who left in Istanbul in the Champions League final. Like, I have no sympathy. The football matches aren't that long, right? Just sit it out. Like
you love doing.
Yeah,
It's what you're paying to be there.
You're paying to do. I don't know if I don't know. Love is sometimes I'd sometimes have a real existential crisis when you're watching an LDV Vans game and it's gone to extra time and you're like, what am I doing with my life? This is not. There are other things. I'm sure there are other things I could do. But yeah, generally, and also if you support a rubbish football team, then winning is not. You're not expected to win ever, and so defeat is part of it. You can't have the good bits unless you have the bad bits. So no sympathy for anyone who left during the Dover match. It's your fault.
That's it.
And
we've finally got it on record. We've got an authority to say that.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, are Cambridge this season rubbish? I don't need the necessarily searing insight, but are they bad? Are they good? Are they too early to say?
I think it's early enough to say we're not brilliant because
Fair
where
enough.
Are we?
I did
Third bottom? Are we third bottom? Second bottom? So it was funny. Like Gary Monk came in. So last season was interesting. We sacked Mark Bonner, who's been brilliant for us. He was like a Cambridge fan. He coached all the way up from like the under 8s, under 9s, whatever. He got us promoted in the COVID season with Paul Mullin, obviously, who scored about 1 million goals. And we had Wes Houlihan, who's the greatest centre midfielder I've ever seen wear a Cambridge shirt. Actually, a midfielder who wanted the ball from the defenders. I've never seen that. Who came short and said, "Can I have it, feet?" Not a thing I'd seen in 30 years. And so then we'd stayed up pretty comfortably in League One, mid-table, and then the following year we stayed up on the last day of the season, and it was amazing because I was doing a TalkSport show at exactly the time the game kicked off, and so I'm watching it in the studio in Melbourne on my own. I'm watching it, and I'm meant to be interviewing, a famous Nottingham Forest fan or whatever, but I'm paying no attention, and I think Sam Smith scored, and I just cheer because it's involuntary. And then I'm really sorry about this, but I think listeners understood, and it was at this stage where we had to win, but MK Dons and Accrington, if either of them had won, we were fucked. And neither of them won, but MK Dons drew with Burton, had 1 million shots, and their Burton keeper had the most amazing game. And so that was sort of breathless. Then last season, Mark Bonner was sacked, and we brought in Neil Harris, who used to play for Cambridge City and he had a Cambridge connection. He was really I love the club, fabric of the club. I really believe in the DNA of the football club. He was one of those managers who said the football club all the time, and you start to believe he did the Cambridge United pod, and I think he is a really lovely guy. And then he just fucked off to Millwall because that's the club in his heart, and you were just like, what? We've only had 10 games, and he turned it around a bit, and then Gary Monk came in. We weren't great, but we won enough, and we stayed up on the last day. But it wasn't like a jeopardy last day. And then the idea was we were going to play tiki-taka this season. We were going to play, and I think the opening game Stockport beat us, and I watched that because I had a very jet-lagged 2-year-old in my house who is my child, and then Louis Barry scored from 50 yards. He's a really good player. And then we played. We actually were playing quite well, but we were losing. But it was all right. Everyone's like, "Oh, we're playing good football. This is great." But then after about, we were 4-1 down to Blackpool and drew 4-4. And that was the only point we had after 9 games. Then I think we won 5 in a row in all competitions. But that does include the EFL trophy and stuff. Then we got absolutely spanked by Peterborough, who are obviously our local rivals. And it's been pretty poor since. Got a point against Bolton. That was a good last-minute equaliser. I saw us get absolutely humped by Reading, but we did beat Shrewsbury 4-1 the other day.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
and I was delighted. We needed that because they are. You've got to fear for them if we're doing them 4-1, but I don't think you have anything to fear. Would be my. I wouldn't go to the game in trepidation, or if you're in, that sort of odd bar in LA with a TV the size of Las Vegas. Yeah. If you're there, I wouldn't be nervous. I think you can go with confidence, but we've got a few players coming back from injury. Dan Barton's a lovely, skillful little winger, who looks like a small child, and it arguably is a small child, but he's got real ability. And beyond that, got a lot of cloggers who, try their hardest. think that's sort of fair.
These are the trap games, though, Rich, where you just think you've got one small
you can
child
only
and
lose
nobody
from
else.
this point of view, can't you? It's like,
and Wrexham are overwhelming
we've been
favourites.
that team. We've been that team who were just near the bottom. Max, I wanted to pick you up on Sir Wes Hoolahan, I presume he's known as now, because I remember when we signed Paul Mullin, Nath, we actually spoke to Under the Abbey podcast. I'm not sure if they were trying to deal with the loss.
Where's he gone?
He's vanished.
He was making a really good point.
He's either playing, I don't know what he's playing, musical statues or something, but I think
Question is, do you have such a symbiotic relationship you could just carry on the question? Though?
I think so. I think he's going to say, we spoke to Under the Abbey podcast and they said you need Wes Hoolahan to make Paul Mullin tick. You can't just take Paul Mullin because he's brilliant with us because of Wes Hoolahan. You've already sort of said it, but how good was Wes Hoolahan for you guys? Just like another level, though, like another level you hadn't seen in Cambridge before.
Do you know, much like the criticism that you guys get, and rightly so, for sort of doping the the National League or whatever, and like getting in Ben Tozer to just hurl balls at poor non-league goalkeepers, etc. I think it was sort of the same. Now we only had him, and we got him for nothing, but absolutely he was such a glorious footballer. And it's just, when you see someone, I remember interviewing once Willy Sagnol. Not sure who he manages now, but anyway, he played right back for France in the World Cup final. So, like, arguably quite a good footballer. And he was talking about Zidane and just saying, for him, for Zidane, it was a different game for him. He's like the best right back in France. He's playing the World Cup final, and yet Zidane was just on another level to him. So I guess if you strip it down to a League Two level, that's what Wes Hoolahan was. There just wasn't, no one could touch him at all.
For a second, I thought you were going to say you were interviewing Willy Sagnol, and he mentioned Wes Hoolahan, and I was like, that is a great story. That should have been the start of the story.
But the thing about Wes is he's just so loved at every club he's played at. Like, you see that he's just totally loved, and by the Republic of Ireland fans as well. Like everybody, I think Trapattoni never picked him, and it's like still Republic of Ireland fans are furious because it's like he just had so much ability.
I managed to sort of telepathically figure out your question about Wes Hoolahan, so we just ploughed on like the professional.
We just answered it.
Was it basically
the Abbey podcast
Wes
said to us that Paul Mullin was nothing about Wes Hoolahan? The Abbey podcast said to us, like I said, I'm not sure it was grief, and that's how we're dealing with it. But they said Paul Mullin, there's nothing without Wes Hoolahan, which was
I told you,
turns out he is something, isn't it? It turns out Paul Mullin is actually something. If you spend another however many million pounds. Yeah. Have you found, I think it's interesting, because obviously the Wrexham story is amazing. I haven't watched Welcome to Wrexham, honestly, because I talk about football a lot and I watch a lot of football.
Yes,
if I'm going to watch a box set, I want to watch The Bear. I don't want to watch,
The Bear is great.
Season
really
3
good.
of The Bear, I felt went down a little bit, though. I enjoyed I enjoyed like 2 or 3 episodes a lot, and I thought about 6 or 7 were not as good. Season 2 is amazing.
I'm about there. Without giving any spoilers, Sugar's sort of giving birth, and as my wife is pregnant, she's like, "I don't want to watch this. This is really not what I want to watch." But so I haven't watched that. But what I wonder is how much, because obviously they appear, and you know them better than I did. They appear like really nice people who have the best interest of the club of heart and have done so much stuff with the community, and yet obviously, I don't want you to go up. Like, I don't want it to be, you got money now. It's like Birmingham. I'd rather it was just like, shit. You just lose out in the playoffs and you have a shit time because people don't like teams with money. But obviously, I prefer them to oligarchs or nation states with dubious human rights record. To my knowledge, Ryan Reynolds doesn't have a terrible human rights record.
Wait until you find out the next World Cup's in Wrexham, actually, instead. Wait until 2020. 2042.
It's in Rob McElhenney's house, isn't it?
Yeah.
But have you found there is sort of now like a backlash, like a kind of we're bored of that story and all that? And do you care?
Yes and no.
No, I don't care at all.
I think what we say is we're relevant again. We had 15 years of people not knowing what league we're in, people forgetting what club we are, lots of people we spoke to didn't realize we were in non-league for 15 years, and they
Rich,
didn't
we
realize
also had
how
the patting
dark.
on the head. We also had that like patronising, like, oh, it'd be really good if Wrexham got up. Like, what a nice club Wrexham
do you,
are. Like,
do you
it
remember
would be great
when
if...
sort of when Leeds United weren't in the Premier League for a long time, and people missed them, and then they came back to the Premier League, and I was like, I fucking hate Leeds. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like that. Be careful what you wish
Oh, it'd
for.
be really nice for Wrexham to go up, and then it's like Wrexham get money and go up, and it's like, I want Wrexham to go bust. I want this club to cease to exist.
I think I
Yeah.
also think it depends what era of fan you talk to, because people like yourself, Max. That's not a good way. It sounds quite Greg Wallace, that doesn't it?
It's okay.
Middle-aged men of a certain age.
I am a middle-aged man of a certain age,
Yeah.
but I can confidently say I'm not going to be cancelled in 10 years for anything I've done. I can really say that. But yes, I am a middle-aged man of a certain age. Yeah, please do.
As a middle-aged man of a certain age, remember Wrexham being a Football League club. So they can kind of appreciate that Wrexham are back in the Football League, kind of where we feel we belong. But for a younger generation of fan, we've been non-league longer than we've been Football League. So for them, we are a Salford City, we are a Forest Green, we're a Stevenage. We're one of these teams who've just sort of emerged from nowhere, like Crawley or Fleetwood. So I think it does just depend with your own sort of relationship with football, to be honest. I think doing the podcast, lots of the podcasters we've spoken to, maybe because they're a different type of fan themselves, they remember clashes with Wrexham across the years. They remember, they famously remember...
It's all jealousy, right?
TikTok users hate us, basically. Anyone on TikTok does not like us.
If this was one of our rivals, I'd despise them, and I'd want them to have all the worst luck in the world, and I would cheer their defeats, and I'd absolutely love it, because that is part of football. Like you said, Max, when you go for a period of not winning games, you almost get your pleasure from seeing your rivals suffer. That can be as sweet as a victory at times.
Football is almost more schadenfreude than actual, like, nobody wins anything. But you see, I'm interested, and I think because they come across very well. I'm interested to see. Obviously, if you just go up and up and up, of course they'll stay. But what I want to see is, are they there? Are they there for it? Are they there for it when it gets tough? When they lose in the playoffs to, Rotherham or whatever? Actually, they're having a shit season. But you take my point, and they go, we've got to go again and again, because actually League One it's not a given you go up, is it? It's just not a given, because Birmingham have a lot of money. Birmingham spent £20 million on a player, right? That's more certainly cumulative than Cambridge have spent on all the players they've ever bought in their history. And I suspect more than like half the teams put together have ever spent on everyone. Like, that's mad. But like, I mean, if we had 20 million to spend on Jay Stansfield, I'd be happy that we did it, right? There's a lot of jealousy in it.
Oh yeah, there's so much hypocrisy in football. That's the whole point. I mean, like you said, I think as well in terms of the ownership of all the lesser evils, there's not... Rob and Ryan have their reputations on the line, and there's so far not really been questionable sources of income coming into the club. We've got, United Airlines, we've had Gatorade, we've had TikTok, Aviation Gin, but there aren't sort of migrant workers being killed for Wrexham to sign Paul Mullen from Cambridge United. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And actually, what's interesting is, if and when you get to the Premier League, which is possible, right? Then I think I'd want you to succeed there,
because we would be underdog. We genuinely be underdogs.
New and different. Yeah. But right now, I don't want you to, because I'd rather Wickham did it. Because
I think that's what's kind of pissed fans off as well, is that, like, whether you like it or not, it's kind of semantics. We have been portrayed by Rob and Ryan as an underdog story. So to a degree, this working class town finally getting investment and eyes and some love and some money, that is an underdog story, because we're still here. The club could easily have gone out of business. But then portraying yourself as underdogs when you've got a bigger budget and wage bill than every other team and better resource than every team doesn't really cut it. However, at Championship level, our budget would be the smallest in the league. And Premier League level, like I say, would be minuscule.
I just think we had 15 years in the National League. I don't care. We had the massive budget. We'd served our time there. We'd done 15 years at the same level. I was quite happy to spend our way out of it. I'd seen it done by Forest Green, Crawley, and I have no guilt whatsoever. If anything, I'm reveling in the feud.
Good for you.
Why not?
I
honestly don't lose a wink of
so
sleep.
Good. Just go into a game and just expecting to win. We're so entitled.
But what
spoiled.
Max said there, if you've got 20 million to spend on Jay Stansfield, I would do it. I wouldn't even think about it. We've never had the ability. Our record signing is 700,000, which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong for the level, but we're talking about in January, could we break the £1 million barrier? Which, Rich, I mean, in the last 20, 30 years is insane. We've never done it. Or we can't even think of that kind of figure. So it's just mad. And I sort of think, to get the idea that we could go back to back to back, whether you think the money is the be all and end all is still insane with a manager that people hate outside of Wrexham.
And do you? Because I remember like when we were going up through the leagues, and obviously the crowds get bigger, and there would be a bit of where were you when we were shit? Is there that, or is it all like everyone's in it together?
Well, that's why I mentioned the Dover game, because I was there to the end. So have that, all of you. But yeah, there's certainly an element of that sort of trying to one up people, and there's always going to be, I think, a proportion of the fan base who maybe are always better back in the old days where no one came to the matches. We used to lose every week, but it was proper. There's none of this glitz and glamour. We didn't sign players. It was all who the manager's mates were just signing and stuff like that. But look at the product. Look at the fact we're even talking about it, and we've still got a podcast. It's like it's just so much better. We're just living a surreal dream.
I know we'll let you super shortly, but you know what I was thinking? That people will say, "Oh, where were you? Whatever." And Wrexham's rubbish, and it's plastic, and it's this and that. It was something like last season. Every other team's highest attendance at their ground was for Wrexham. So something like every time Wrexham would come to your ground, you would break the attendance record, and that showed me enough that people do just want to get a glimpse of Rob and Ryan. Rob and Ryan are not going to turn up at. They did turn up at Maidenhead that time, which was sort of the perfect introduction to English football. I felt just standing in the terrace at Maidenhead. But did we lose that game? Paul Mullin got sent off, but they sent off Bryce Hosanna as well, who looks
mistaken identity.
Like him.
I remember, I think Ryan said it himself that it was, or maybe Rob did. He said it was amazing because he, in this Hollywood bubble, he's used to adoring fans and everyone wanting his attention, and he was walking through the Maidenhead stand and everyone was calling him a wanker and calling him a twat and saying, fuck off back to Hollywood. And it was like for the first time in his life he was hated, and he just got this surreal buzz off it. Because in his world, everyone just wants to be super positive and just wants to like boost your ego. But in the world of cynical lower league English football, they despise you.
Yeah, totally. It sounds like my Twitter mentions.
It does actually,
on a daily basis. I know that's really interesting. Like, I do like. I'm like. It doesn't keep me awake at night. Like I'm interested. I'm really interested to see how it goes. And on balance, there are a lot of teams I would sort of rather didn't do well over. Two seemingly quite nice guys who've just done really well for themselves. I'm not referring to you two, obviously you two as well. Yeah.
Two guys no two guys I want to see suffer more.
It's Tim Vincent, though, isn't it? Just knowing that he's happy is enough for Max. Yeah. Max, I was going to ask you as well, what is it like following? You touched on it earlier, but what is it like following the team now from the other side of the world? You mentioned you don't go to games as much anyway, but
how would be a trek?
Because I feel like sometimes
it would be a hike.
If you're moved further away, you can overcompensate for where you're from in a way. Do you know what I mean? Because when you're in Cambridge or when you're in UK, it's maybe it was for us anyway.
I think so. I certainly think when I was in London, and you'd be like, well, I could go to Cambridge at some point, so it doesn't matter. Whereas now, when I go back, they'll probably be like, I come back for the summers so far because pretty much all my work's UK based anyway, so that's probably where I should be. And the Melbourne winter actually gets a bit cold, so you might as well do that. So I might be back for like the first game of the season. I'll definitely make sure I'm there. And what I do on a Saturday game is I wake up my son will wake me up at 5, and then once I've got him addicted to something on TV, I will open the Cambridge United Twitter page. But I'll close my eyes and I'll scroll back loads, and it'll be like 2 days ago, and I'll get to kickoff, and then I'll do my own very slow minute by minute. And it's actually, the jeopardy is huge because I haven't worked out a way yet of doing, it's not iFollow anymore, but whatever it is now, Cambridge United Player or something. I haven't worked out how to log in and not find out the score. So like I can watch Match of the Day without finding out the scores, which is great because it's really fun. But I haven't yet found that out. So I'll do that for the Saturday games, then I'll watch the midweekers. So I don't. It's interesting. Yeah,
I was going to say that's one of the bugbears of modern football. Actually, is that if you go on YouTube, it tells you the score instantly. Whereas I don't want to know. I'm watching the highlights to find out.
I like the idea of Max scrolling the Twitter and then giving himself 15-minute respite in between the scrolling.
Half time.
Go off, make a brew, and then come back and then keep the scrolling. Yeah, so it's really got to be pure. You know what I mean? On the real experience.
I don't take 90 minutes. But like around the same time, a Championship Manager 93 game would take, which was the pinnacle of all football management games, I would say. But I don't like. I mean, the question still follows for like how I follow all football, right? Because I've got to be across all the Premier League games. I've got to be across, all the Champions League stuff, etc. Like it doesn't make a lot of difference. I think there are issues like, I'm on the radio on Saturday morning and Storm Dara is battering the UK, and I've just got to be aware that is happening, right? So, and we don't lie about the fact that I'm in Australia. Like everybody knows, for Football Weekly, for The Guardian, for TalkSport, and because that was a real key for me. I was like, I can't bullshit. You can't bullshit people, like. But I don't say, oh, I've had to put air conditioning on in the shed because it's 32 degrees today. But how's Storm Dara for you? Like you just go, like what? You'll just do a text up. Most of the time, you don't need to talk about where you are, what you're doing, right? It's more just, and I also think it's a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. All the time I'm on a Zoom call with Charlie Baker or Barry Glendenning or the pod guests, so I'm constantly talking to people in the UK or Europe about football in UK and Europe. So I'm just by just sort of osmosis, I don't feel that far away. Actually, when Cambridge won at Newcastle in the FA Cup, and I did stay up for that game, I did when they panned to the fans after Joe Ironside scored and at full time. That is potentially the most homesick I've felt since I've been here, because it was very much like I would be there. I should be there. Like, I have seen enough shit, and I've earned the right, I think, to be a sort of glory hunter Cambridge fan now, and I would be there by hook or by crook, and I'm not, and that feels wrong. But most of the time, we are not winning at St James's Park, right? We're getting humped by Reading, and so results don't dictate my love of my football club. But I don't feel that distant in a funny kind of way, and I think that same goes for sort of life. I do feel homesick because my friends are so far away and my family are so far away. But a lot of that is psychological. Like, you guys live in Manchester, right? I mean, that's quite close, I guess. But if you live in London and you are from Manchester, you're just not going to go there every weekend because you have a life. Your life becomes your life. So actually, the psychology of being a day away on a flight means it feels even further than it actually is.
Well, I've got to say, sport adjacent wise, my brother lives in Japan, so I think he's got a lot of the same as you, where how he digests sport, follows football, and gets homesick, etc. as well. What do you miss the most about the UK then? I'm talking foods, I'm talking TV programs, routine, not just Cambridge United.
Okay. I miss pints of bitter. And I don't
John
always
Smith.
drink bitter. You just can't.
John Smith is my favourite pint in the world.
Yeah. No, I would say just like a sort of an IPA, but like a very low, it does, can easily be like a 3.4% session, but not a pale ale. Australia is full of craft ale, right? There's buckets of that. And you can get a really good Guinness, but you just can't get a pint of bitter for love nor money. So I miss that so much. I probably miss roast dinners. I miss Waitrose.
I just missed a chippy when I was having to work in New York. I just missed a chippy, which sounds really naff, I know, but I just wanted a
totally.
Chippy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I miss, what else do I miss? Yeah, apart from my friends and family.
Bitter and Waitrose.
Bitter Waitrose and roast dinners.
Yeah. When I get home and I like the hummus is better, weirdly, because there's a massive like Greek diaspora here, but like I miss the hummus in the UK and the pita bread, which is like, and then you can get really good stuff here, but like, your mind plays tricks on you of like the things that you like the best. But yeah, when I get home, like the first pint of bitter I have is that is a glorious moment.
This has been very entertaining, but also you have a small child. Rich has a cat that needs looking after. I assume. So
I understand.
In many ways, I've actually completely missed bedtime. So this has been.
It's been helpful.
Now, it's fortunately there is a podcast I do now called "What Did You Do Yesterday" with David O'Doherty, the comedian, and my wife actually listens to that. She's not listened to any content I've ever made about anything, so I don't have to worry. She's not going to listen to this. I apologise. No,
that's fine.
She does not know. She's not heard of Wrexham Football Club.
Well, obviously, people who follow you on social might know you get the Mrs. Rushden's predictions, usually sort of big England tournament games. Has she ever predicted a Cambridge game for you?
No, I think she would know that I supported them, but I couldn't guarantee it.
She must know that you support Cambridge. She must. She
Like,
must know
think-
that. I'm not believing that. That is
I
nonsense.
think she's. I took her to she hates sports so much, and in a way that's quite refreshing because in the house I don't want to think about it. And I took her to Boxing Day at the MCG for the Ashes, and as we're walking in, she said, "Is this cricket?" That is the level. And she sort of says to me, like if I'm watching a test match on my phone, if we're out, she's like, "That's rude." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's the Ashes, you understand?" She's like, and she likes Below Deck. If she was watching Below Deck on her phone when we were out, I'd be like, "That is really rude." Like that is ridiculous. And she's right. Sport is great because we love it, but if you don't like it, it's really silly. All of this is really silly.
It's so difficult to explain to someone who just doesn't get it. Either do, because you either do get it or you don't. Yeah. Oh well, we'll see. Don't worry, Max. There will be a lot of bitter Cambridge fans for you on Saturday night anyway, when Paul Mullin scores in front of the away end and kisses the badge.
Cambridge might do it though, 1-0, and then all the fans go nuts. Maybe they take a 1-0 lead, and then I don't know, giving Max false hope from the other side of the world now that they might topple Wrexham.
My expectations are low. So look, everything is a bonus.
I was going to say, Max, when you wait Saturday late evening, Sunday early morning for you, when you're scrolling up the Cambridge Twitter feed, will it hurt more if you see Paul Mullin scored in the first minute or the 90th?
Do you know, I'm just not that bitter. Like
he's not like us, Rich.
He was amazing.
Well.
He was amazing for us, right?
Max has found eternal happiness. He's just content with his life.
He really has.
Maybe. It's warm outside, but like he was amazing for us. He wanted to move back north. He got this ridiculous, like. I did try and at one point say, I think he would have been in Deadpool earlier if he'd stayed at Cambridge, but it's probably not true, is it? So, like, what an amazing opportunity for him. Like, I have nothing but happiness for him. And, like, if he scores the winner, it's okay. Is how I feel.
That's what we need to get to, Rich. We need to get to that level of contentedness.
You're young.
We're too wound too tightly for these Wrexham games.
Both of you have a lot of unknowns left in your life, and those things people say, "Oh, you don't know how easy you've got it," and I'm incredibly jealous. How old are you both?
30.
28.
30. God, you look both. You've had good lives. You look much younger. But even still, I'm very envious of being 28 and 30. And
Max was going to say, "There's no way you're that young. What? You look so haggard and old in all these podcasts."
No, I think you look great. You look great, but like, being young is hard. You'll reach this Zen state. I promise.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that bonus edition of Rob Ryan Red. The special edition, we'll call it instead. It was unique. Let us know if you want more interviews like that, or you want us to go back to a more formal structure in the weeks ahead. As always, please do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for listening if you have done on the audio apps, or if you've watched on YouTube. That's greatly appreciated as well. Take care, and we'll see you again next time.
The Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Bay.